LONGBOX CRUSADE presents Monthly Monday Movie Muckabout because the podcasting world needs just one more movie review show. I am Rick, also known as Not Jeff from Jeff and Rick Presents, and let me tell you, the best part of my job is hanging out in the LONGBOX CRUSADE headquarters, hanging out in this wonderful attic filled with all of these movies, and just waiting for somebody to stop by. Wait, what's that I hear? I hear some music coming from down the hall. Well, that can only mean one thing. That can only mean that it is musical genius Joe November stopping by to talk about movies with me. This is the man behind my theme song, as well as many of the songs on this network. Joe, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, Rick. Thank you so much for having me on your show. This is awesome. Can't wait to get started.
Hey, I am excited to have you. I feel like I'm collecting playing cards a little bit, that I'm getting all of the members of the LONGBOX CRUSADE crew, and you're just one more member. I mean, getting you in here, it's like I'm getting the full house. I think at this point in time, depending upon when this comes out, I may have actually talked to Pat Sampson, but I think it's you and Pat Sampson. You're the last two, and it's kind of a race to see which one gets done first.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure at all. No pressure. So you are old friends with Jared, the yard sale artist Albrecht, and he is a movie nut. Are you a movie nut too?
I'm a movie nut. I'd say I'm above average. I wouldn't say I'm at the level that Jared is, but I know a lot about a little.
What kind of genre do you usually enjoy watching when you watch films? Or are you just kind of whatever strikes your fancy?
Tend to gravitate towards, action, maybe some fantasy type films. Like, I grew up as a child of the 80s, so I, love the fantasy films like Legend or The Secret of Nim, those types of movies. Willow. I just love that type of genre, but also like action movies as well. The Arnold Schwarzeneggers and, the Sylvester Stallone movies. Into sports movies as well. I'm a big basketball fan, so I do like to watch sports movies. But usually it's action, fantasy, and of course Lord of the Rings and, The Hobbit. I love those things. Star Wars, it's huge. Yeah, so I love stuff like that. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I mean, you're talking about a lot of things, some of which we've covered on this as well. I think when we're done here, I need to show you my nice Legend. I've got the devil figure from Legend that's sitting right above the desk here. I need to pull that down and show it to you. Mr. Tim Curry and all of his red glory with his horns.
Yeah.
So I gotta show you that before we get off here. But cool. No, I like those styles. I mean, you're talking about those movies that you grew up with, and Secret of Nim and all the Arnold Schwarzenegger and all, those ones that really seeded our childhood. People of our age, that's kind of the genres that we saw a lot of when we were kids. And
yeah,
I want to say it ruined us, but I think it made us more better people in some sense, I think. I hope.
I think it made us a little bit more tolerable about what's going on around us in the world. We've seen a lot.
This is very true. This is very true. All right, let's move on to the meat of the show. I know that you're probably pretty anxious to find out what movie I would like you to watch with me, right?
Yeah, I'd definitely love to know.
Well, I decided to go a little bit outside of the movies that you normally watch, and I decided to delve a little bit into the horror realm, if you will. I'd like you to go back to 2019's Us, written and directed by Jordan Peele. What do you know about this movie?
I know that it was a great follow-up to his first film, Get Out, and I saw that a couple of times and absolutely loved it. But I just never had a chance to see what it was about. I mean, I knew it was about this family that's going on an excursion and they run into their doppelgangers of themselves, but that's about all that I know about it. And I just never had the opportunity to check that movie out. But it was always something that, in the back of my head was like, one day I'm going to check that movie out, but just never did.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because, you've got a couple of young kids that are keeping you away from watching a lot of media at this time.
That's quite possible.
Quite possible. And maybe horror movies are not quite the genre as we're doing the being at home and away from other people at this point in time. Or maybe it's the right movie for this time. I'm not sure. But it sounds like you are a fan of Jordan Peele. So yes. I think that at least that's a good step in this movie's direction. I don't want to talk too much more about this movie because there's a lot to unpack with it, and it almost feels like doing any kind of talking about it at all is going to give away some spoilers. So we're just going to go ahead and back slowly away from the movie case, listen to the trailer from 2019's Us, and let Joe November sit down in a dark room with all the lights out in the middle of the night and watch this fine film. We'll see you at the other side.
Can't believe how big they've got.
Did you hear Gabe got a boat?
He's kidding, right?
He's not kidding.
Hey, I think it's vodka o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Where's Jason?
Jason?
Jason! Where were you?
I didn't know if you were lost. Stick with me, and I'll keep you safe.
There's a family in our driveway.
It's probably the neighbors. But y'all scared of a family? Hi, can I help you?
Zora, put your shoes on.
If you want to get crazy, we can get crazy. What are you people?
It's us.
They look exactly like us. They think like us. They know where we are. We need to move and keep moving. They won't stop until they kill us. And we kill them.
Be careful.
And we are back. I hope you had a time to watch the movie, because if you didn't, guess what? We're going to spoil it for you, because I'm going to give a synopsis, which has a bunch of spoilers in it, and then Joe November and I are going to spoil the heck out of this film. In 1986, a young girl, Adelaide, is at the Santa Cruz boardwalk with her parents. She walks away while they are not looking and wanders into a funhouse. In the mirror room, she has a horrifying experience where she sees a reflection of her that was not an image. Years later, she is at her family's vacation house with her son, daughter, and husband, but she still has trauma remembering her past, something she has never talked about. Her husband finally convinces her to return to the beach, where a series of events amp up her terror and her fear. Back at home that night, the family is confronted by their mirror images of themselves. Tethered duplicates that were created and bred in the abandoned tunnels below them. The family manages to escape and quickly discovers that they are not the only ones being hunted by their tethered, but they seem to be the only ones who have escaped. All right, here we are. A nice, good film, and when we're recording this, it's Halloween, so how perfect is this? But Joe, tell me, what was your first impression of watching this film? What did you think of it?
I thought there were just so many layers to this film. This is a typical Jordan Peele film where you can watch it multiple times and always pick up something new. It's just the brilliance of his movie making. I was very impressed with it. It was definitely a horror genre. I read somewhere that his first movie, Get Out, there was a lot of confusion of what type of genre that movie was. I think even the Golden Globes labeled a musical comedy type thing. So he made sure that, hey, this is definitely a horror film. He even had his actors brush up on some classic horror films like Jaws and things like that. The Shining, which I'm sure you can see some nods to that movie in this movie. Yeah, it was a great film. So many things. There's still questions that I have about the movie, and maybe we can either answer them here or just bring them up and just for discussion for the viewers and things like that. Because there's definitely some things that questioning, how did that happen? How did this person know this, blah, blah, blah. So, but maybe through the course of discussion, we get those questions answered. But it's a great movie.
I agree with you. I think this is one of these films that I think all of Jordan Peele's films deal with a lot of questions, a lot of things to bring up and talk about, and things to get you to think. I am right on board with you. I love the layers of this film. I love the blatant homages to all of the horror movies. I mean, you see it nearly right away you see her picking a shirt at the carnival, and it's Michael Jackson's Thriller. And you see her son is wearing a Wolfman mask. He's wearing a Jaws t-shirt. They go to the beach. The beach is shot like the beach shot at Jaws. There are so many things that are just screaming out, do you remember this horror film? Are we bringing you into this feeling? And it creates a palpable fear, a palpable atmosphere that goes on in the film, which is great. Now, I can't remember. You told me before that you had seen Get Out, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times.
I have not seen Nope yet. I still want to go out and see it.
I haven't seen it either. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
I'm going to ask you this, and then we'll probably get more into it later on, but how did you find this film compared to Get Out, which may or may not be a fair comparison, but...
They're definitely different films. I feel like the first one is more of a thriller, and this one's definitely more horror. I love the comedy in both. Even though it's dark comedy, it's still comedy to me. There was definitely some laugh out loud moments to me in both films. I would say there's probably more of them in this film than there were in Get Out.
Yeah,
to me.
I think I could agree with that. Let's start going through this film then. This is why we're here to talk about it. You mentioned some of the layers of this film. What were some of the initial questions that you had in watching this film? Because there is things that continuously come up. There's a mystery that we, the viewers, and the main character are all solving. How did you feel going through that, and what kind of questions were you asking yourself?
It started from the very beginning when Adelaide, or I guess what she's called Addie, was a little girl watching TV back in 1986, and that Hands Across America commercial showed up. It was definitely foreshadowing. I felt like there was a purpose for why they were showing that. I didn't realize until I did some research later that there really was a Hands Across America campaign, and it did extremely poorly. Yeah, it was definitely foreshadowing because the movie just felt like it was kind of like a critique of sort of like lazy attempts to do equality in some capacity, understanding that there was matching between the Hands Across America picture with the little cutouts holding hands to the actual tethered, like, I don't know, clones, I guess, wearing red, holding hands. That was very interesting. The funhouse that the little girl went into from the beginning it mentioned some Native American mythology in the narration. I believe it was Hopi mythology. And I thought that was interesting why they decided to use that particular type of mythology in that system or in that movie than anything else, and why they decided to do that. There were some other questions too. I'm just trying to go through my notes. When the friend, I forget the guy's name, they went to the beach and met the other family there, and the guy was asking
Josh. Yeah, Josh and Kitty.
Yes. Yeah, he was asking Gabe, did you have all your stuff? Do you have life vests or something like that? And do you have the flare gun? Yeah. And when he said no, he's like, no, I knew you'd forget the flare gun. I was thinking, oh, I bet that's important. I bet that's going to come up again. And
it's Chekhov's gun. You can't mention a flare gun in the first act and not have it used by the end of the third act.
Exactly. I think the main question that I had now that I've finished the film, obviously there's a spoiler. There's a huge twist at the very end. Is that something we can talk about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we gave the warning up front.
Okay. So, the twist is that the little girl who was shown in the beginning of the movie is actually the tethered girl, and they had switched through various circumstances. What I didn't understand is how the son knew that who he was looking at was not his mother, because you could tell that he was hesitant when she said, everything's fine, we're going to be okay. And he was like, He was like, nah, I'm not buying this. You could tell that he's not in a good place. And even though they showed like the realization of, oh, I'm the person who's tethered. And then he looks back and smiles at her son, and he's just looking at her strings like, uh-oh. And she just smiles. And then it rolls credits. It was just like, oh, wow, that's an interesting twist. But I didn't figure out how he figured it out.
I'm not sure because I haven't looked into that per se, but I was thinking that he spent a lot of time down there.
Yes, he did.
Because she took him.
Yep.
And it might have been that he might have heard some things, or now that he had a chance to relax, come down off the adrenaline, and start replaying things in his head, that's when he all of a sudden might have realized that, wait a minute, something is not quite right. Or maybe some snatches of conversation he heard while he was locked in the locker, maybe that started to penetrate through and he started putting things together and saying, I don't know if this is my mother, but who is my mother? Or he could also be thinking to himself too, did my mom get switched while we were down there?
Yeah. Yeah, it was certainly something that I did not expect. And I'm glad I'd never read any reviews or any spoilers, because I was totally surprised by that twist when it came. I was like, man, because I kept thinking, I kept asking myself, okay, what is the point in all this? Is there something that's going to happen where it's just going to be like, blows my mind? Because that's usually what kind of happens in these types of films. But I could tell that there was a buildup. The entire movie was a huge buildup. There were several different elements to it that were building up to something that would reveal like the main plot of the movie. It started from the beginning. I don't know if you caught in the beginning when they were at the park, and she left the father and she was going down the steps, and there was that amusement ride. Yeah. It didn't sound like an amusement ride, like a park. It sounded like flies buzzing. There was a buzzing. Yeah, there was a buzzing that was going on, which you could think of like biblical plague, pestilence types of foreshadowing type of things, that it was purposeful in the audio. Jeremiah 11:11, the sign that guy was holding, actually pulled up the Bible verse. It says, therefore the Lord proclaims, I will bring upon them a disaster from which they won't be able to escape. They will cry out to me, but I won't listen to them. Yeah. I was like,
Which they brought about themselves. This is most good horror. Well, I won't say that, but there is an element of good horror that's out there that is derived from man-made disasters. And this is a man-made disaster. These clones were bred for an experiment and then left on their own. It is the story about Adelaide and her clone Red, and the fact that they got switched, and the fact that there is also a sadness and despair to this, that she was able to grow and adapt to society. Something that probably all of the clones did want at some point in time. Whereas the real Adelaide had to suffer and was oppressed and was smothered in the society until she learned how to take it over. Yeah. Because of what happened, because of the switch, one person got to live a very fulfilling life, and the other person was able to bring a rise up of the mutants from the sewers.
Yeah. And there was also an element of kind of predestiny, at least for the tethered, because how did the tethered know which people to kind of meet and be, have children with, that type of thing? Because it could have been anybody,
She did mention that. Red mentioned that a little bit, where she said that I didn't have a choice about who I was going to meet or marry or fall in love with, because they had to follow along with where their tethered were and who their tethered were interacting with. And so she had to be there in front of this man. Yeah. And I believe she called him Abraham.
Yes, Abraham. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, yes, it looked like Gabe, but
or
Gabe,
M'Baku. I thought that was cool. M'Baku and Nakia from Black Panther.
Yeah. I love all of the acting in this. Every single person in this is fantastic. But yeah, just the fact that his tethered was a grunt, a low-brow man. She didn't love him, but she had to marry him. She had to have kids with him because that's what her tethered did.
That's what the rules were. I thought it was so interesting that, because I couldn't tell how widespread these shadow people were. Obviously you saw the 4 people in one family versus the 4 real people in the family. But when the 2 dads were fighting in the boat scene and Abraham was yelling out into the distance, and you could hear a shriek back
like a call and response.
Yeah.
I was thinking, are there others?
Yeah. Because at that point in time, we only know about the family at that point.
Exactly. And so I'm like, oh, this world is getting a little bit bigger than just 4 crazy people just showing up with, a mystery background. You don't know where they come from. I did get a chuckle that Josh, the shirt that he was wearing at the beach, I think it said fragile on it. And it was in white. And I was thinking, white fragility? Is that what that means?
Yep. I would completely go with it. I mean, the characters we don't care about, the only characters we really care about are the family. Right. And we care about their tethered.
Right.
The ones we don't care about are the White family. I mean, these are their closest friends, and we know very little about them. And it seems like that's all that the Wilsons know about the Tylers, is just the very base level.
Yeah.
They're friends, but
they're friends.
That's all you need to know because, well, that's just what the family is.
Yeah. And then there were other kind of, and the main character, Addie, spoke about, all these coincidences coming up. 11/11, which kind of represents synchronicity. And then like when the guy threw the Frisbee and it landed on the exact spot on top of the towel, it was just like, how does that happen? And just all these other things that are just kind of popping up that are kind of matching each other, but coincidentally matching. It was just like, there's something that's going to happen.
It gets into that idea of the tethered and the people that are exactly alike each other.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
There is a long history of horror films, and there is the black man is the only one who gets the first one to get killed in the horror movies.
Yeah.
So in this one, we do have the white family that gets killed in the horror
They get killed to a spectacular soundtrack I made it.
Oh, yes.
I was like, I've never just nodded my head to a murder like I was doing. I was like, oh my goodness, they are playing and just the fact that this Amazon Alexa type device was working so incorrectly. Yeah. It's like, Ophelia, call the police. And it's like, play F the Police by NWA. Oh my God, it was brilliant. That was brilliant. Like the failure of technology.
The failure of technology compounded on that it's happening to this white family.
Right.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah. It was beautiful. The Heideki joke was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of white? Why would you? That was hilarious.
What a white thing to do is to have a Heideki.
Heideki. They also did a nice title drop when Jason says, "It's us." When he realizes, oh yeah, this is us. This is the family. Yeah, and when everybody does title drops, I always think of Family Guy. And he's like, he said it.
He said the word. It's really easy in this one too, and it's a very simple title, but it also speaking of layers, it does have other meanings. Mm-hmm. This program was set up by the U.S. and a lot of what we see here, and a lot of what both families are going for, especially the Wilsons, is the perfect Americana thing. The dad wants to have the boat. They've got a vacation house at the beach. They've got the history of coming here. He wants to, there's just so much of it that is, I have a perfect American nuclear family. There's a lot of that built into it too. And the fact that we've got hands across America. Mm-hmm. This just boondoggle of a failure of a semi-good idea that occurred mid-'80s.
Right.
It goes right into that entire thing. Like, this is what the United States is. There's a rot that's occurring underneath everything that they're seeing.
Yeah.
And it's that rot that is going to destroy them.
And there was a reflection of who we want to be and who we really are. And that was represented by tethered people and the real family. And there was something that's really chilling when they said, "Who are you?" And Red says, "We're Americans."
Yeah.
I was like, wow. That self-realization from the shadow people was just remarkable.
I want to really get in depth with this family. We've talked about them a little bit, but we have to really appreciate the characters in here. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the youngest of the main family, Jason. First of all, he seems to be the horror aficionado. He's wearing the Wolfman mask. He's wearing the Jaws t-shirt, and his name is Jason.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah. Nothing coincidental or accidental there. That was great.
No. And then we have his tethered, which is Pluto, who is a pyromaniac.
Yep.
A scarred pyromaniac.
Yeah, he's been through some things. And the fact that he was so like feral just kind of added a nice little layer to the character as well. Because you never knew what he was going to do. And even Red said, he has a temper. So it's like, oh man, this kid seems dangerous. It was just amazing to see that.
And yet at the same time, I did appreciate he wanted love and he wanted friendship. Because he was still a little boy. Yeah. Which also brings the question of, these are not monsters. Well, we could almost say Red's a monster and Abraham's coming close. But Pluto, he's not a monster. He is what he is. He's raised in his element. But he wants to be friends. He wants to play.
He wanted to connect.
And he seems to want love.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I did get a kick out of Josh's boat's name, the Biatch. Oh my God, that was hilarious.
I forgot what Gabe's boat's name was. It was
I didn't write it down, but it was so funny because that just the boat became a punchline. Even afterwards, the kid was like, "Nobody wants the boat, Dad."
No, nobody wants the boat. Boat that barely starts and always pulls to the left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just.
I wanted to talk a little, just keep going up the family's names there. Zora. And I was sorry, too. Jason was played by Evan Alex. Okay. Zora was played by Shahadi Wright Joseph.
Yes.
And then her tethered characters was Umbre.
Yep.
You mentioned before, we've got the Chekhov's gun. Jordan Peele likes to do that. He likes to hint things in there. The family has a conversation about, are you going to do cross country? Are you going to keep doing cross country? Right. You're a runner. You should keep it up. I've been watching a lot of Doctor Who lately, too. And I just, there's always the zombie thing and the Doctor Who. You always run. You need to know how to run. You need to run away from the trouble. But they bring that back, too, with the character. She's a runner.
Yes.
And then they also mirror that, too, with her tethered as well.
Yes. Because even when they're telling the kids to escape, she's like, Zora, run. She knows exactly what to do. She just starts running until she can't run anymore. And it was creepy that they had Umbre smile the entire time. It does make me want me to see that. Make me want to see that new horror movie called Smile. I think it's called Smile.
Yeah.
And it's just, you think something so innocuous as a smile could be so creepy and just build some type of questioning purpose behind it. And you don't know why people keep smiling all the time, that it can put you off guard. And they use that element really, really good in this film for that character. Like, so there was always some hidden joke or something that person knew that you didn't know. And it just brings out insecurities and fears and things like that just from a smile.
Yeah. I also like Zora herself because she is, I think both of the kids get it real fast. They figure this out. They are in danger. They need to do things to survive.
Oh, and they did things. They stepped up when those tethered twins came after them. Zora took care of business with that golf cart.
Oh, God. And then had a fight later on with her family as she was like, well, I'm going to drive. I've killed the most.
Yeah, they were arguing over body count. I couldn't believe it.
I think it's part of this turning the trope on its head type of a thing.
Yeah.
You're waiting for people to fall apart and we are going to keep dying and losing people because we're not following the rules. We're not doing what we need to survive. This family comes together.
They do. They really come together to try to solve whatever is going on and figure out and get to the bottom of, get out of, whatever hole that they're in. It really speaks to the dynamic of their family. The dad is obviously a Howard University alum, which I picked up on immediately because of the shirt. My mother went to Howard, so I had a nice little connection with him. Winston Duke is also, he's a Trinidadian. My wife is from Trinidad.
Oh, wow.
So I was definitely connected to these characters beyond just what I was seeing on the screen. And so it was really interesting that they had those elements in there. Alice in Wonderland was a huge theme across this movie. Follow the little white rabbit. It was definitely in there. They did the same thing with The Matrix, countless other films. But yeah,
Follow the White Rabbit.
Yeah. I was questioning why all the rabbits were let out, though. That was never answered to me.
I think it's part of the prison that they're in. The rabbits were part of the prisoners, just like the tethered were. The tethered, they didn't have food. They had rabbit meat because rabbits can breed.
Right. Yeah, that's what they ate.
That's what they ate. And then the rabbits were let out because they were free, and so they're letting the rabbits run free too.
That makes sense.
One of the breaking of expectations is, of course, Winston Duke, Gabe. He is the father figure. I'm not going to say he's ineffectual, but he gets taken out pretty quickly.
Yes. As big and strong as he appears, he met his match, and it was no contest from the beginning.
No, I guess he wasn't really taken out, but he was hampered by his leg, and that put him down a level.
Yep.
His wife, Addie, she is the one that really runs the family anyways, and he seems to be wanting to work with her. They seem to be co-parents on things, but once again, the changing of expectations. You're expecting the man to take charge of the situation, but this is her movie. This is her story.
Oh, she even says, you're not making the decisions anymore. Very clearly. She laid down that ground rule very clearly. There was one element that did frustrate me about Gabe, because when Addie was kind of telling her story, he was either making jokes or not really taking it serious. It did lead me to believe that she hadn't shared that particular part of her childhood to him yet. And so that's why he was kind of oblivious to why she was behaving so weirdly.
Yeah.
So when she finally explained, it was like, oh, she hadn't told him yet. And so that makes sense, because, you know, he was focused on one thing, and it definitely wasn't her childhood.
And it also seems like the way he diffuses all the situations is always with a joke. He always is going for the joke. Yeah. That's his defense mechanism. And when he is faced with this new information about her past, they have been together for a few years, at least 12 years just by the ages of their kids, plus more on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay, this has been a long time. We've been coming out here for a while. You never go to the beach. There's a reason. Why didn't you tell me about this before?
Yeah. The conversation that they were having when they were watching the news, like after the Tyler family got killed, I didn't realize like one of the tethered was just laying there dead right in front of them while they were talking.
Passed out. Yeah. Passed out, apparently.
Just chilling. They were just having a conversation. I'm like, oh, just ate some cereal. And I kept thinking, don't you guys need to leave? The police will check for fingerprints. They're going to see. I'm trying to put realism to it. And it's just like you just have to go along for the ride and see what the characters decide to do within the frames of the film.
Well, at that point in time, they are in a bit of a safe situation, they think, for a moment, until the hide-a-key thing. But just taking a moment to breathe. Like I said, the family is coming to terms with this really quickly. Like you said, their dead friends and the dead tethered of their friends are scattered around them, and they give them zero mind, because we've already kind of explained this family doesn't mean all that much to them. They're closest friends, and they don't really shed too much of a tear that they're dead. So they're on survival mode at this point.
And to go back earlier to what you were saying about how the kids really took action when, first of all, the daughter wanted to drive, and she definitely wanted to do that. And so she put her foot down literally to drive and take care of business. But the other thing I thought was nice was when Jason realized the connection between himself and Pluto and realized, hey, if I start walking away and backing up, he's going to do the same thing. There's nothing that he can do about it. So he's really smart to have that self-realization of what the connection is between him and his family and this tethered family. Unfortunately, he got caught blindsided by Red.
Yeah. I just thought of this, and I think this can explain the kids and the fact that the husband, of course, Gabe, was injured early on, but the kids, how well they're dealing with this situation, they are part tethered. And this might get into some of the questions of what are you born with and what do you learn? They are half cloned tethered person. They were raised in our society, but their mom, unbeknownst to them, was actually tethered, was actually a clone. So what part of their own genetic makeup, it might be more predisposed to whatever this is.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. That definitely leads down an uncharted road, but certainly something that will be fun to explore.
Yeah. I'm not giving you any answers. I'm asking more questions at this
No,
point.
man, these are great questions. Just to let you know, I'm an English major. My bachelor's was in English, so diving into these different layers of storytelling is just fascinating to me, and that's really the appeal that Jordan Peele has with his films. He loves to just put layers on layers on layers, and makes you think about the possibility of what's going on within that world he created hours, days, months after you watch the film.
Yeah. One person we really haven't delved enough into, and that is, of course, the star, Lupita Nyong'o.
Yes.
Who plays Addie. How amazing is she in this film? And how expressive is all of her looks?
Yeah, she is just top-notch acting. I read somewhere that the voice that she used for Red was trying to match one of the Kennedys who had some type of disorder where he breathes through his larynx or something like that. And she wanted to match that because that character, that tethered character, hadn't spoken in a long time. And then all of a sudden she's learning how to speak, and she was trying to capture what that sound would be like. And so just to hear her alter her voice that way to create a whole different character beyond the appearance, but just what she sounds like, it just added another great layer to how she uses her acting skills to convey a character.
I think all four of the characters did a great job of being the two different characters, their own stretches of acting in that role. She had the biggest lift because, like you said, she had to do the voice. She definitely was the last one. She had a lot of exposition that she needed to do with both characters to explain what was going on. And she needed to carry both the dread and the hope at the same time in both characters.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And she did a great job doing that. It was amazing to see the dread, the fear, the anxiety, composed with the strength, the determination, the guts. Mm-hmm. She embodied both of those two extremes in this film.
One thing I wanted to also ask on is the finale of the film, where all of this is building up to. It's all building up to a replaying of the Hands Across America by the Tethered.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a childish and unimpressive kind of thing that they're doing, in the sense of, well, you've just gone and murdered everybody, and that is your big goal. It's not world domination or anything like that. You just want to do Hands Across America.
Right. That's your statement.
Yeah. That's your statement. What do you think the reasoning behind that was?
That's a good question because, obviously within the confines of the film, that's what the characters decided to do. But it's, as art imitates life and life imitates art, it was certainly a reflection on what our current society has to deal with, different facets of people trying to either find purpose or find equality or find togetherness in the weirdest of circumstances and trying to connect in some way. I felt like there was a level of connection that they were trying to achieve by any means necessary, which it became down to. And then it just brought down elements of, okay, all these people are trying to do something for a purpose. And then you had the rest of the population just looking on like, what's going on? They were kind of spectators to this phenomenon that was going on. What's going on? What does this mean for the rest of the world, the nation? What's going on in Southern California? And all of a sudden this thing is going on, because I'm sure it made national, global news within this.
I think that was what they're showing too, is that I don't think it was just national. I think it was across the United States. And that they were spreading out across the entire United States.
That's true, because it did say in the beginning, just the text itself was foreboding, where they're like, there's hundreds of miles of tunnels or whatever across the U.S. No one knows their real purpose. And then it just kind of slowly fades out. It was like, yeah, that's good.
And all of this was, of course, the idea of Red. She was the ringleader for this. She's the one who spread this message across, because this is the last thing that she remembers of being the prime, of being the lead Tethered, before she came down here and before she started to have her own sense of purpose again.
Yeah. It's still crazy to think about, like the girl that we see is not really the girl that is.
Well, but then there's also the question as well of, but does it matter? Yeah, it might have mattered to her parents that this was not really her, but after she grows up and after they raise her as their own child, well, isn't she their child?
Yeah.
And for Gabe and Will and Zora and Jason, that's his wife and their kids.
Yep.
She's not an imposter, but she is an imposter.
Yes. She's not, but she is. It's so many. It's just great. It's just great to.
Is there anything that we missed from your notes?
I'm going through it. I think we touched on everything that I wanted to talk about. When Pluto comes out, he's like, "It's a trap. Get out." He mentioned the previous movie.
He said the words. I think if we paid attention, somebody would have said nope.
Yeah. Yes. That would have been foreshadowing for sure. Oh, when Lupita's character came back to the fun house and smacked the hell out of that mechanical owl because he didn't want to get spooked again. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it freaked her as a kid, and there was no hesitation.
Yes.
She remembered that. She remembered that owl, and that owl was out.
Yes. It was hilarious. Like, I'm taking this one out. And then when Red said, "And then there was us," she said it again. She said it again. So, but yeah, we hit on pretty much everything that I wrote notes on. So, yeah, this is good.
Let me go ahead and ask you the big question then. And this is different than I get to do every other time because this is the LONGBOX CRUSADE Network. We always rate our films and we always give them full banks of popcorn because we don't do halvesies. But since this is the LONGBOX CRUSADE Network and you are Joe November, the only person on LONGBOX CRUSADE Network who can do this, you can do a half star if you want to. So 1 to 5, halvesies are in play for both of us. What would you give this film? How many full or half bags of popcorn would you give this film?
I will do 4.5 bags.
Very nice.
Yeah. And I guess I don't do 5 just because there's just still some questions that that are unanswered. So there's a little bit of longing on resolution to the film that won't ever happen. And that's kind of the point. But I get that. So, but it's definitely more than a solid film for sure for me.
Yeah. I am going to actually go a little bit in the other direction. I would normally probably give this a 4, but because I get a chance to do halvesies, I'm actually going to do a 3.5.
Okay.
And my reason is I wanted a little bit more terror. I wanted a little bit more fear. The thing I like about this film is I like how competent the family is once they start getting in the mindset. But unfortunately, that takes out a whole lot of level of fear.
Right.
So I don't know how else to really install it, but I think I just wanted a bit more terror, a bit more fear in there.
You wanted the stakes to be a little bit higher for maybe one of the characters. Maybe one of the family members dies or something like that. And they
maybe that was what was needed.
They had to figure out how to go on without this particular family member or something like that. Yeah, I can see that.
I do love this film, and the 3.5 is not meaning any shame on the film at all. I get a chance to do a half, I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
And like I said, normally I would probably give it a good 4, but there's a bit more that is missing in the film, and I think that's what actually hurts it for me.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, there was one thing I forgot to mention.
Sure.
When they were playing, like after they played NWA, then it went to Beach Boys. Good Vibrations. Yeah. Me personally, I've always felt like that whistle sound in the chorus was weird to me. And they were playing that as these murders were going on and these other were fighting. And it kind of gave me a shudder because it's like, yeah, it's creepy. I mean, the song is about good vibrations, but they have this weird, ghostly, eerie whistle sound that I've always found freaky, and it just played very well to kind of like the mood or the set that was going on at the time. I just thought that was an interesting choice of song to put.
I like it when directors do that with music, where they put music. There's a word for this too, and I've totally forgot it. They put music that is happy or joyful, and they put it up against horrific or terrible things. A great example of this is most of the scenes in American Psycho. They also do it in the movie Face Off, where I think they're doing Somewhere Over the Rainbow and the kid's listening to it on his headset.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this horrible, there's a lot of different places where they've used that, where they use music that doesn't quite fit. And this is another great example of where that occurs, where they're playing Good Vibrations and people are getting slaughtered.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So you just mentioned music. You are known as Joe November, the music guy. So is there anything that you would like to plug, any work that you do, anywhere people can go and listen to some of the things that you've created for our ears?
Well, I've been on a little bit of a hiatus for about a year or so, but I still have some music on Bandcamp as under Joe November. You can search Joe November on SoundCloud, on Apple Music, on Spotify, Amazon Music. I'm on TikTok and Facebook under Joe November. But I'm going to start getting back into some projects. Had a couple of live events this year, kind of set me back, but now I'm going to get back on track. So looking forward to put out some more music. So I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent, excellent. Another place you can find his music is at the beginning and ending of this episode, because Joe November has done my music, and it's beautiful music. I love the music of my show. It's
I'm
fantastic.
glad you like it. Awesome.
You can also find me on Twitter at mmuckabout, or on my other podcast, Unpacking the Power of Power Pack, which I host with my tethered shadow, who only wears Hands Across America shirts, Jeff. If you would like to be on the show, please feel free to contact me. You can reach me at jeffandrickpresent, all one word, @gmail.com. A big thank you to the LONGBOX CRUSADE Network for letting me use this wonderful attic of their headquarters to broadcast the show, and also to all of the LONGBOX CRUSADE members who help support this network. If you want to help support the network, head on over to Patreon and search for the LONGBOX CRUSADE. That's all the time we have today, but grab the popcorn and pull up a seat, because we will be back in a month with another episode. The music for this episode is Fall Back by musical genius Joe November. Check out his SoundCloud at Joseflin99. That's JOSEFLIN 99.